Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 2,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
As representing England, reasons can wait. Why? But I've had many trips to the well before for this team, for you both, for people beforehand, and I've got one more trip to do. And the only thing that I ask, please, is can everyone please just do the same? We've got a lot of hard work still to do.
Picture this. Trent Bridge, Sunday afternoon, the deciding test of the series hanging in the balance. Ben Stokes is mid-run-up, ball in hand, sweat on his brow, doing what Ben Stokes has done for 15 years, making things happen. And then, at exactly 3:25 p.m. British summertime, while he is literally still out on the field bowling, the cricket world gets turned upside down. Ben Stokes is retiring. Not next year, not after the Ashes. Right now. This test, this one, the one he's playing in at this very moment, is his last. And if you think that's dramatic enough, here's the kicker. The very next ball he bowls after the news breaks, he takes a wicket. Trent Bridge erupts. Because of course it does. Because this is Ben Stokes we're talking about. And Ben Stokes does not know how to exit a stage quietly. He doesn't fade out. He detonates. If you've followed this channel, you know we've been tracking every twist of this extraordinary England summer. The nightclub scandal, the curfew chaos, the captaincy questions, Joe Root stepping back into the leadership role he once swore he was finished with. We said it felt like the end of something. We just didn't know it would be the end. Today, it is. So settle in, because this is the story of how one of the greatest, most ferociously committed cricketers England has ever produced decided on his own terms, in his own time, that enough was finally enough. Let's start with the moment itself, because the staging of this announcement tells you everything about who Ben Stokes is. This wasn't a press conference. This wasn't a leaked story dripped out through anonymous sources to soften the blow. This was Stokes, mid-test, mid-spell, choosing the literal middle of the battlefield to lay down his sword. He made the actual decision on Saturday while padding up to bat in England's first innings. Think about that for a second. He is strapping on his pads, preparing to go out and fight for his team. And somewhere in that ritual, that familiar 15-year-old ritual of buckling and tightening and breathing, something inside him just clicked into place. The decision arrived, not as a thunderclap, but as a quiet certainty. He told Joe Root and Harry Brook that evening. Root, his old captain, the man who handed him the armband and the man who picked it back up again just weeks ago when Stokes was sidelined. Brook, his vice-captain, the heir apparent some say, the next great hope of English batting. Two of the most important relationships in the England dressing room, and Stokes chose them first, in private, before the wider squad even knew. Then on Sunday morning, he told the rest of the team. And then, only then, he went out and did his job. He played the cricket, he bowled the spell, and somewhere in the middle of it, at 25 minutes past 3, the news hit the public. There is something almost unbearably poetic about doing it this way. No grand farewell tour. No lap of honour built up over a summer of guaranteed back pages. Just Stokes doing the only thing he's ever really wanted to do, playing cricket, fighting for his country, right up until the absolute last available second, and then telling the world almost as an afterthought, because the cricket itself always came first for this man. Always now. Let's talk about why. Because Stokes was refreshingly, almost brutally honest about the timeline, and it's a lot more complicated than the easy headline writers will reach for. The easy story, the lazy story, is this. Ben Stokes got into trouble in a nightclub, got dropped, got embarrassed and quit in a sulk. Wrong. Stokes himself shut that narrative down immediately and directly. He told Sky Sports the controversy added to his thinking, but it was not the cause. The seeds of this retirement were planted long before any nightclub, any curfew, any tabloid headline about his night out. They were planted in Australia during a Ashes series England lost 4-1, a bruising, humiliating tour that would test the resolve of any leader. Stokes came home from that defeat and, by his own admission, started wrestling with the idea of walking away from the international game right there and then. But he didn't walk away. Instead, he did what Ben Stokes always does when he's hurting. He doubled down. He poured everything he had left into fixing it, into putting things right, into proving the Ashes humiliation was a blip and not the beginning of a decline. And that, he now says, is exactly where it all went wrong. He worked so hard to repair the damage that he burned himself out completely. Let that sink in. The very effort to save his career from one bad chapter is what finally convinced him to close the book. Then came Lord's, the first test of the home summer against New Zealand, and by his own description, an experience that brought back every negative feeling he'd been trying to outrun since Australia. Imagine carrying that weight into a home test at the most famous cricket ground on the planet, trying to look every inch the Warrior captain in front of a packed Lord's crowd, while internally drowning in the exhaustion of a man who has given his body and his mind to this sport for a decade and a half. He sat next to Joe Root in the England dressing room during that test, and something passed between them in that moment. Stokes hasn't spelled out exactly what, but you don't need him to. Two men who have given everything to English cricket, both wrestling in their own ways with what's left to give. And then, and only then, came the nightclub incident, the story you all know. Stokes was made unavailable for the second test against New Zealand following an incident at a London nightclub, breaching curfew protocols and landing himself in the middle of an ECB investigation and a media storm. We covered the fallout extensively on this channel, the captaincy questions, the speculation about discipline, the sense that the wheels might genuinely be coming off England's leadership structure heading into a series decider. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. While Stokes was stewing in the consequences of that scandal, dropped from a test, watching from the sidelines, he didn't go and hide. He went back to Durham, his boyhood club, the place where it all started for him as a teenager dreaming of playing for England, and something happened there that he simply wasn't expecting. He fell back in love with cricket. I found a new lease of life for the game, Stokes said, describing his time back in Durham colours during that second test week. No expectations, no spotlight on the world stage, no captaincy pressure, just cricket. Pure and uncomplicated, the way it was before fame and injuries and the relentless international grind got their hands on it. And it's almost cruelly ironic, isn't it? The controversy that should have been the darkest chapter of his summer ended up reminding him exactly why he loves this sport and exactly why the international version of it, with all its baggage, isn't where that love lives anymore. He came back into this Trent Bridge test desperately hoping he could recreate that feeling on the biggest stage. He couldn't. Unfortunately, I just couldn't get that feeling back this week, he admitted. And in that single sentence is the whole tragic, beautiful logic of this retirement. It's not that Stokes fell out of love with cricket. It's that he fell out of love with this version of it. The suffocating, scrutinised, body-destroying version that comes with 3 lions on the chest. Durham gave him back his joy. Trent Bridge, despite everything, couldn't. Now let's talk about the body, because we cannot tell this story honestly without talking about what 15 years of Test cricket has done to Ben Stokes physically. This is a man who has been held together by willpower and surgical tape for the better part of a decade. A left knee problem hampered his bowling through 2023 and 2024, forcing him to manage his overs like a man rationing fuel on a long, dangerous journey. Then came 2 separate hamstring injuries later in 2024. A shoulder problem arrived in the summer of 2025. The Ashes tour ended with an adductor injury, and as if the cricketing gods needed to add one final, almost absurd insult, he then suffered a broken cheekbone, not even in a match, but while coaching young players in the Durham Academy, struck by a ball in the most innocuous of settings. You couldn't write it. The man survives bouncers from the fastest bowlers on earth and gets felled coaching kids in the nets. And let's not forget 2021, when Stokes stepped away from the game entirely to prioritise his mental health, a move that at the time was seen as genuinely groundbreaking in English cricket, a superstar admitting publicly that the mind needs protecting just as fiercely as the body. It's brutal what we do, physically and mentally, Stokes said this week, reflecting on the toll. It's all getting a bit tiring these days. At 35, I feel like I have got to do so much physical work just to keep doing what I'm doing out there. That's not a man complaining. That's a man being honest about arithmetic that simply doesn't add up anymore. The energy required versus the energy he has left to give. He also spoke with real candour about the hidden cost of the captaincy itself. A role he calls the greatest honour, but one with a shadow side most fans never see. There is another side to it that people don't see. Only those closest to you see it, he said. My family, my wife, they see the bits where it does drain you and it does affect you negatively. Stop and think about that for a moment. The hardest part of leading England wasn't visible to us. The fans, the cameras, the back pages. It played out quietly at home in front of the people who love him most. That's the real price tag on greatness that nobody ever shows you in the highlight reels. So when Stokes says this decision might sound quite selfish, he's not being falsely modest, he's being painfully self-aware. He knows England fans wanted more years out of him. He knows the team will feel his absence. But he also knows, after everything his body and his mind have absorbed across 15 years, that this is the moment to choose himself, so that what's left of his relationship with this sport can survive in some healthier form. I hope it's the best thing for the team going forward, he said, but I also hope it's what will allow me to keep loving this game that has given me so much. That's not the language of a man storming off in disgrace. That's the language of a man trying to protect something precious before it's too late. And let's be clear about the scale of what's ending here. 15 years, 122 test matches, 114 one-day internationals, 43 T20s. Numbers that barely begin to capture what Ben Stokes has actually meant to English cricket. This is the man who took that screaming, diving catch off Stuart Broad's bowling at Trent Bridge in the 2015 Ashes, the only Ashes win of his career, sealed at the very ground where his international story is now ending. The symmetry is almost too perfect to be real. This is the man at the heart of the greatest World Cup final in history in 2019, when England lifted the 50-over trophy for the first time before somehow topping even that just 6 weeks later with arguably the greatest individual innings an England batter has ever played, dragging his side to an impossible win over Australia at Headingley. This is the man who stood in the middle in Melbourne in 2022, ice in his veins, as England claimed the T20 World Cup. Ashes winner, 50-over World Cup winner, T20 World Cup winner. England captain through some of the most thrilling, chaotic, redefining cricket this country has ever produced. The entire Bazball revolution built, in large part, on his fearless template. I'm pretty happy and content with everything I've managed to do, Stokes reflected. And you can hear in those words a man finally allowing himself to feel proud rather than restless, satisfied rather than hungry for one more conquest. There's not too much I can complain about, really, from a man who has spent a career refusing to accept limits. That quiet contentment might be the most surprising headline of all. And then, because the cricketing gods clearly weren't done writing this script, there was that final flourish. Moments after the retirement news broke around the globe, while Trent Bridge was still buzzing with the shock of it, Stokes ran in and bowled the very next delivery and took a wicket with it. The crowd didn't just cheer, they roared, because in that one ball you got the entire Ben Stokes story compressed into 6 seconds. Drama, theatre, timing, and an almost supernatural instinct for producing the moment exactly when the moment calls for it. So here's where we leave it. On Monday, in the fading overs of this deciding test against New Zealand, Ben Stokes will walk off an international cricket field for the final time. No more Ashes battles, no more World Cup finals, no more captaincy press conferences with that familiar, steely, slightly weary smile. But this is not goodbye to cricket itself. Stokes has been crystal clear. Durham, his boyhood club, the place that gave him his love of the game back, will keep seeing him in their colours. The international chapter closes. The cricket chapter somehow fights on. What a way to go. What a career. What a man. So tell us in the comments, what's your favourite Ben Stokes moment of all time? Headingley 2019? That Trent Bridge catch in 2015? Melbourne in 2022? Or maybe it's this very moment, walking in to bowl one last time with the weight of a retirement announcement still ringing around the ground. Drop it below. We want to hear every single one of them. And if this channel is your home for everything England cricket, the drama, the storylines, the moments that actually matter beyond the scorecards, make sure you hit that subscribe button, smash the like and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Boundary Line UK will be right here covering every twist as this remarkable career reaches its final unforgettable chapter. Thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next one.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 2,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.